to view this budget in its context, in the last 8 years, local government aids have been cut by the previous governor and the previous legislature by 50% in real dollars. And the local governments have made up for half of that cut with service reductions of police and fire and parks and libraries, and the other half through increased property taxes. And so, and similar to the schools, in real after inflation dollars per pupil, state aid has been cut by 14%. So we've been through a period of contraction in the state share of responsibilities to its political subdivisions, and cities and counties and school districts are all political creations of the state. And to cut further would just impose additional property tax burdens. According to the Minnesota Department of Revenue, for every dollar you cut in local government aids, property taxes go up by 67 cents. And the property tax is the most unfair tax. You have middle income families pay 4 times a higher percent of their income in property taxes than upper income. Businesses pay over 4 times more in property taxes statewide than they do in the corporate tax. And the property taxes has to be paid whether or not a business or a farm is producing a profit, whether an individual has an income or even has a job. So it's the most regressive and the most unfair of the various state and local taxes. So my goal in this budget, and it was a difficult task because it's a $6.2 billion projected deficit, that's 19% of projected revenues. If it had been a balanced budget, as Governor Quee back in the 80s left his successor, this would be a much easier assignment. But that's not the case. So my goal was to protect middle income taxpayers and senior citizens, lower income renters, businesses from the additional burden of yet higher property taxes, recognizing that local governments are probably the most cost efficient of government at any level and most responsive to the needs of citizens, and that with the limited revenue options they have, it's unfair. And I will continue to insist that everybody in St. Paul recognize that if they're going to cut $1 of local government aid or county program aid or the other essential financial sources for local governments, that they're going to force property taxes up. And that's just an inescapable reality. Similarly, I'm very pleased that we were able to keep my commitment to increase state funding for K-12 education above the amount of increase caused by the fact that we're expecting some 14,000 more students at our schools over the next 2 years, and to try to restore a better tax fairness to Minnesota. And I'm pleased that despite, again, the deficit needs to be reduced, that 95% of Minnesota taxpayers will see no higher income taxes and no higher state-imposed local property taxes resulting from my budget proposal. I'd like to introduce now our Commissioner of Education, Brenda Casilius, to talk about the education reform proposals that are in the budget. And I'd also like to, just while I'm recalling, point out that additional component of my budget proposal is a restatement of my bonding proposal made a couple weeks earlier, which would provide for funding for the Mankato Civic Center. That would provide 450 jobs over the next 18 months. Those are in the private sector, construction industry. So we talk about jobs proposals, putting people back to work in Minnesota. That's one of a number of bonding proposals that would have that direct and immediate job impact, improving the economy here in Mankato, and similar projects like it all over the state.